deliberate, staged acts are very common among ritual abusers to confuse their victims. Another favorite one is alien abduction. So a lot of these cult groups stage an alien abduction, and they'll stage a surgery by an alien, and then they will make the victim believe that that is what happened to them, and through torture and dissociation, they will bury the memories of the cult abuse more deeply, so that now the person sounds like, that they believe that their trauma is alien abduction. And for the victim, it works because now they have a basis for all of this fear that they have. They know that they're terrified. They know they have post-traumatic stress disorder, but now they think it's all from an alien abduction, but it was a staged alien abduction. So there's a lot of sources of disinformation within the victims.
As a cover, ritual abusers, and I'm wondering if they would go through the whole, costume thing, embed in their victims, actually, to them, it's a true memory, but it's of a false situation, and that is they were not abducted by aliens, but that is what they've been implanted with, and that's the cover that the abusers can hide behind. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's extremely
common among ritual abuse survivors.
Now, that is not to say, and I don't know, that is not to say, I would assume, that some folks who claim to have that happened would have necessarily been victims of this, or maybe I'm wrong. Do you believe it's a 100% deal? I doubt it would be, but what do you think about that those who claim they may have been abductees might have very well been, unwittingly, victims of abusers?
But yeah, I think some people who believe they were abductees are ritual abuse victims.
Well, welcome to another segment of the Grassy Knoll on this August 16th, 2006. This is Viz, and we have with us a woman to whom we will refer as Maury. Her website is reflectionsinthenight.com.
Well, I was born April 30th, 1941 in Cedar City, Utah. I was absolutely an autistic child. The rat line was where the Catholic Church helped the Nazis escape. All over the world, they say they came, but they came in large numbers to South America at the end of World War II. I did a lot of stuff out of China Lake and with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. When they used me as a gray, I was with other children. Also, there were other grays there.
Now, when you're saying grays, and we'll talk about this later, you're referring to, I guess, what, to represent aliens?
Yes, gray, UFO.
You've mentioned the grays, you mentioned the UFO hoax. Can you tell us what was all going on about that?
They had out in the Mojave Desert, and I don't know how many people knew because my memory of it was that Mrs. 𝗧𝗿𝗶𝗴𝗶𝗴𝗲 was there, and I was there, and the Nazis were there. I don't remember seeing the group from JPL, but they had. It looked like the China Lake area. It felt right. When I first heard about China Lake, I thought it was up higher in the state. I kind of knew where I was taken. I knew I was taken out in the Mojave Desert regularly. And when I saw China Lake was the Mojave Desert, I thought, oh, how did I miss that? They had some kind of a hangar, and it looked like they did have, the UFO, they had something. They had something that was round and would go up vertical and had flashing lights, and my guess, the Foo Fighter that they talk about.
In the Second World War?
I kind of looked it up, but I thought it was bigger than that. I would have guessed more like a helicopter that was dressed up. And they had something.
Well, and what were they doing with it? Were they making films, or?
Well, they were going to do this UFO hoax because they had a group of kids all dressed up like the Greys, and they just made something up to make you look otherworldly, and what they made up caught on. Everybody remembered that costume.
Are we thinking basically about the ET type prototype?
Yes, that's just a little naked child. put a nylon stocking over your head to make your mouth disappear into a slit, and your ears, 2 holes on the side of your head, and you can't talk. And they put goggles on. I think they originally used the World War II goggles, but they may have put that down to just the goggle lenses, because your eyes disappear too, and you just look like, you don't look like anything. So, and they have you naked, but you see all the original, and they were little girls. They used little girls. They kept us thin because one of the ways they control you is to starve you. But you see all those original pictures, and they're all naked. Boy, I remember being cold is what I remember. They kept us naked out there in the desert, and it's freezing cold a lot. I just really remember being cold.
Were you out there for days or weeks straight?
I have no idea, because I have no idea. All the memories haven't come up on that. I don't know how much they used me. I just have some of it. Something may come up later, and I don't know.
Well, during your lifetime and during your, obviously, memory, we had Roswell. Can you shed any light on what we know about Roswell?
Well, I get a little upset when they say that when they say, oh, they caught the aliens and somebody died, then I start to get up thinking one of my little friends died, I don't know. They didn't care whether we died or not.
But do you believe that the whole Roswell situation was an extension of what you experienced?
Yes, I think it was the same period of time.
Well, there's no doubt, obviously, that there have been crafts that can do what we claim UFOs can do, because obviously it does happen. We've all seen things. I don't know what it means in the big picture, but obviously these anti-gravity crafts were around for some time, and you can attest to the fact too. Were they not around in the late 40s?
Yes, they started this. They started this out of JPL in that area. That was started very soon. Well, I remember being there. I think 1947. I think that's about right. Mm-hmm. I think that I was about 6. I think that I felt about 6. So they were real busy out there. They had all of a sudden the Nazis were in there. They'd gotten. They now controlled the group of physicists at JPL and
GHB and abductees. Now, abductees, what I mean is alien abductees. Everyone knows I'm a MUFON investigator. I followed this for decades. There was a doctor named Dr. John Mack, psychiatrist, Harvard University. Brilliant man. Brilliant psychiatrist. So he's a physician. And during his tenure at Harvard, he started to get interested in abductees. And he started to do some research and interview each one. And he did hundreds. And he wrote a series of books about it. Now, here's where I always come into the problem when I'm doing these sort of things in front of groups or at conferences. I get a very small section of the community who thinks that abductees and UFOs is crap and don't even bring it up, Dave. Then you got other people who I talk about cryptids and they say, oh, that's crap, don't talk about it, Dave. In the reality, you are an expert at what you're interested in. And what you're not interested in, many people refuse to even acknowledge it. And some of those people in the UFO community, I've said this before, when I give a talk in front of a MUFON group, sometimes the whole front row is all PhDs. Brilliant people. And when I get off stage and I usually have dinner and I get invited to dinner by these groups, they all surround me and they say, Dave, you're one of the few people who has come to the table with facts. This is nourishing. This is good. Let's keep talking. Very appreciative. Well, John Mack came to the table with facts. He had interviewed hundreds of these abductees and all told a very similar story. The experience, the abduction, one consistency. They'd wake up at night in their bed and they felt absolutely frozen. They couldn't move. Sound familiar? Sometimes they had loss of memory. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they could remember everything. Things that happened to them on wherever they were taken, claiming a ship. Some of the things that were done to them. But they couldn't lash out. They couldn't move. They felt like they were somehow frozen and their muscles weren't reacting. Sound familiar? So that goes back to GHB. And there seems to be some linkage there. Whether people want to acknowledge it or not, there seems to be.
If you go back in time, why Area 51 really started, you learn that it was a base hidden inside of a base, nuclear weapons, and it was all about beating Stalin at his black propaganda campaign, as I write in the book, to hoax Americans in a War of the Worlds type scenario, whereby little men who looked like aliens would get out of an aircraft and the government would go crazy about it. And then Stalin would say, look, not only do we have technology better than you, but we have a better propaganda department than you. In my book, I interview a man who worked for the Atomic Energy Commission, who tells a different story, tells the story of receiving that craft at Area 51 in 1951, which is why the base is called Area 51.
Oh.
And that inside the craft were humans who had been altered, surgically altered to look like aliens, in a plan for Stalin to sort of twist Truman's arm, because at that time, we had the atomic bomb. When Roswell happened, we had the atomic bomb, and the Soviets did not.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
When you say humans that were surgically altered to look like aliens, do you mean, so this is 1951, so
Yes.
you're talking about 4 years after the supposed crash.
Yes.
So what
They had
was
the bodies,
left?
they kept the bodies.
They kept the
brought them.
bodies. In what?
And-
Formaldehyde? Like what?
Yes. And also because the idea was, and remember, or I can't say remember because you haven't read the book yet.
Right.
And I wrote this book 8 years ago. But it did really impact a lot of my thinking and working on government secrecy projects, because it makes you really consider what a hoax means and what it means to a population of people, and how the government begins to work with disinformation versus cover stories and all of that. But going back to answer your question, if you follow the logic that my source told me, that these were, modified human beings as part of a hoax. And the reason that I trust the source is because, Joe, he told me that he also worked on the program. So he had a burden to unload, right? And so if you follow that logic through, then the Bob Lazar story is that when Bob Lazar said, I saw an alien, it looked like this, it was small, it had big eyes. Those were those were the surgically modified humans that the government was doing experiments on. The source was a major player in the Manhattan Project. He went on and worked in the Atomic Energy Commission. I mean, there's a wing of a museum named after him. His accolades, his awards were so extraordinary. With a Q clearance, that's what you have when you have access to nuclear secrets. So if someone has a Q clearance for decades and they're full of garbage, you really have to ask, my God, should this guy have a Q clearance? I mean, that's reverse engineering his credibility. The book came out, his wife of 65 years knew it was him, okay? And I went out to Las Vegas and sat there in a room with the source and his wife. And she said, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you made this all up, to her husband. And he said, it's the truth. I mean, that's a triangular version of getting at the truth. But again, to reiterate, I believe he believes what he told me was the truth. That was the truth he was told. We met because I was interviewing nuclear weapons engineers who were setting off nuclear bombs in Area 51, in the Nevada test site, Area 12, Area 23. And they all said to me, you've got to talk to the top engineer of all this weaponry. And they gave me his name. And we talked for days and hours about nuclear weapons. And then, in one conversation, he began to cry and told me this story that I was like, what? He was crying because he participated in our version of the human experiments. Because what the Russians do. We do. According to him, we had a small program in 1951 where we wanted to see how the Russians did what they did, how they made human beings look like this. He said they were handicapped children. And he told me that he participated in this. So again, I mean, unless you have someone that lost their mind at age 90 and was willing to tell their wife of 65 years, I lost my mind. He had a grandchild that was born that way. And the grandchild did not live long. The grandchild died. And it made him feel so guilty about what he had done that he felt compelled to confess, if you will. And I remember saying to him, why are you telling me this? Why don't you tell a priest? And he said, a priest would judge me, and I can tell you won't.
There was something called the Eye of Orion. It used to be, in Egypt, it was the Eye of Horus, H-O-U-R-S, and the all-seeing eye. And it actually is a form. I want to describe it to you because this is a very advanced technique. We don't have time to go through all these. But if you were with me for a whole week, you'd master this. But in 3 or 4 hours, we'll do what we can do. But visualize, you know the old TV picture tubes that had like a slightly curved front, and the tubes came back like this to a rounded back? Just like the human eyeball. Actually, if you take, the eyeball is not round. It actually is a little bit curved on the front, but flat, and then it curves back like this, not to a point, but to sort of a rounded. This crystalline object actually came out from underneath Joshua tree. And it was crystal clear, translucent, and came into the house where we were, and it was sent from this sector of space. And I was told that if you go within this, you can put your consciousness within this eye, and then it magnifies your remote viewing ability and your intention to create something exponentially. Very powerful technique. And you can actually put this Eye of Orion within the Merkaba and travel and then see through it. I don't know, your powers of visualization had to kind of, you know, go with this for a moment. So see yourself in this Merkaba, looking and gazing out through the Eye of Orion, and then intending to create change in your life, world peace, contact with these civilizations. Very powerful. These are structures and forms within consciousness. When this object came to our house, it was actually going from window to window, wanting someone to acknowledge it. Very strange experience. And so I acknowledged it. It was in the wee hours of the morning. And it was quite clear to me that the sort of re-understanding some of the mythology, things that have become mythological, are actually technological conscious structures within the geometry of awareness. And so the Eye of Orion became a technique for really magnifying intent and also seeing with great clarity. But you have to center your awareness in it and expand, and you can expand the Eye of Orion with the Merkaba. The Merkaba is an energy field in consciousness, in the sacred geometry of how consciousness becomes matter.
The truth is sometimes harsh and unsettling, but it is the truth. Why build a craft that's triangular like ours? Why have a dorsal fin on it like our airplanes do? Why mark them? What's the purpose of marking them on the side? We do that. The other thing is, why would I get binary code in English? Now the craft, I have nothing to measure it. So I do my stride. I do 3 of these strides. Well, I'm getting older. That's actually 9 feet. I used to, all right, so about 9 feet, about 6.5 feet tall, triangular. What I'll call the left side, I see writing. Got this stuff. I said, what is this? So they're like glyphs. You know, they measure about 3 feet wide, 4 or 5 inches high. They go from the smooth glass to like etched into the metal somehow. On the top was a big triangle one. But that's how it was laid out in the craft. The blue is because I don't know how to do a slide. Okay, on the one circle, don't worry about that. But that's how it was laid out. Those glyphs fascinated me, along with 6,000 other things that were going on. But they did fascinate me. And when I got to them, I just thought it was pretty, unusual. I was going over them, like that. And as I went through the bottom ones, the one on top was fascinating. The one with the circle in the triangle. There's the coordinates. Yeah, this is the message said it in the binary. There's a long story. The binary would have never been out, wasn't for Linda Moulton Howe and John Burroughs. Most of them are by pyramids.
My name is 𝗧𝗿𝗱𝗏𝗃. In 1991, I retired from the U.S. Air Force as a colonel. I was base commander at two large military installations, and at my time of my retirement was director of inspections directorate for the DoD Inspector General. In that capacity, I had inspection oversight of all military services and defense agencies. In 1980, I was the deputy base commander, RAF Bentwaters, the largest twin base complex in East Anglia. At the time, this was the largest tactical fighter wing in the Air Force. In late December 1980, I was called upon to investigate a very strange event, an event that was distracting our security police from their primary duties. Early on the morning of 26 December 1980, our police patrolman discovered strange lights in the forest east of the back gate at RAF Woodbridge. 3 patrolmen were dispatched to investigate. They reported a strange craft, triangular in shape, sitting on 3 legs. The craft was approximately 3 meters on a side. It had multiple lights. It rapidly maneuvered and quickly disappeared. 2 nights later at the family Christmas party, I was interrupted by the on-duty police commander. He told of strange events and said it was back. I was tasked to go out and investigate. I fully expected to find an explanation. I took 2 senior patrolmen with me, a disaster preparedness expert, and the reporting on-duty police officer. We suddenly observed a very bright red-orange object. It was oval and with a black center. It reminded me of an eye, and it appeared to be winking or blinking.
Could this be that smoking gun document that really reveals that there's a cover-up, that they are underground bases doing a research on alien reverse technology? And I think it's written in plain sight on these documents. So get ready, everybody. This could be it.
So this is a beautiful image. I love it. I'm into circles and lines myself, connecting the dots. This is a great find.
Southern California, 1990. Adult female drew these 3 non-humans that abducted her. She said these aliens had light brownish yellow skin. The being on the right also has a triangle inside a circle on his upper right chest. That symbol has been seen by many abductees on leotard-like uniforms of some gray beings, including Jean Robinson of Springfield, Missouri. She drew this circle around an equilateral triangle that she remembered on the left breast of her abductor's bodysuit.
LA-based investigative filmmaker Jeremy Corbell recently released this video taken by the Navy, showing what he describes as pyramid-shaped UFOs flying over the USS Russell off the San Diego coast in July of 2019. The Pentagon has since confirmed that the video is authentic.